Hello and welcome to Countdown to Power with me, Graham Price. As usual, you can't put the news on without there being another Tory scandal, can you? James Cleverly, or Jimmy Dimley as he's coming to be known, has put his massive stupid foot in his massive flappy gob again this week. The Tories want you to hate doctors, and Rishi Sunak's banging on about inheritance tax again. But there was one little spat that caught my attention that I think we can comfortably call the Mercer versus Vorderman Twitter war. Well, we'll come back to that, but first, let's just have a little look at the Right Honourable Johnny Mercer, Conservative MP for Plymouth Moorview. But just before we do that, just a quick interjection, I won't keep you long. YouTube's algorithms run off four things: whether you've liked, commented and subscribed, and how long you watched the video for. If you could do one of the first three, and maybe just watch the video a bit longer than you might have otherwise, it would be hugely appreciated and it helps the channel loads. Thank you. Johnny Mercer became an MP in 2015 after serving 7 years in the army and doing 3 tours of Afghanistan, for which we should thank him, as we should with anybody who serves the country, regardless of their political opinions. But in 2015, another old boy military conservative, Bob Stewart, put him forward as a candidate, and the machinations of what goes on behind the scenes at Tory HQ realised how useful an ex-veteran would be, and how much of an ally that could be, and backed him. He did say that he wanted to fight for the rights of ex-veterans, but he displayed qualities far more attractive to your average Tory when he said that Britain has a massive welfare state that saps the ambition and drive of the younger generation. Well, this was after 5 years of austerity, so I'd be more likely to say that it was massive cuts in public funding, the closure of almost all youth services and the chronic underfunding of the ones that remained that had probably sapped the ambition of the younger generation. But what would I know? Johnny's missed all but 6 votes on issues regarding education though, and when he did attend, he voted twice to raise tuition fees. He's voted 3 times to reduce funding for local councils, and 4 times against lowering the age of voting to 16. So it would seem his concerns about the ambitions of the British youth come with some caveats. The Right Honourable Johnny's wife, Felicity Cornelius Mercer, was immediately given a £45,000 a year job running his office when he was elected. She went to a private school in Worcestershire, shocker, so I would imagine she's probably capable of running the office of a single Tory MP. But she could be swanning in and faffing about in the office for 20 minutes before buggering off to the hairdressers for all we know. She might work hard, I'm not judging her, I don't know her, but I am judging the fact that she can be given a £45,000 a year taxpayer funded job just because her husband won a seat in an election. She's cropped up in the news a few other times as well. She complained about the amount of online abuse she got after her husband voted down a Labour motion to provide free school meals for disadvantaged children during the pandemic. It's like these people just believe they've got a God-given right to behave like absolute bastards and then get offended when people don't like it. People who don't get paid £45,000 a year for being married to a Tory. Fucking cheek of it is unbelievable. Speaking of hungry children leads us on to a little incident that happened last year when the Right Honourable Johnny Mercer was asked his opinions about food banks. Yeah, he's another one of those. He was also asked especially about the reports of ex-army veterans turning to food banks. When asked what he thought the reasons might be, he said these are very personal decisions that people are making around budgeting every month. When it was suggested to him that maybe these people felt that they didn't have any choice but to use food banks, he said, well, in my experience, that's not correct. So is he suggesting that every ex-serviceman that has used a food bank was choosing to do so? Because I don't think that's right, is it? He also said we need to make sure that there's a safety net for people. This is from a man who, while managing to miss a vast amount of votes on a wide array of subjects, has managed to turn up to vote for reductions in welfare spending 23 times, reductions in the actual safety net that he's claiming should be in place. This was also when he started saying he was going to end veterans' homelessness by the end of the year, which moves us on. Recently, a 98-year-old D-Day veteran, Alfred Gwenigo, was evicted from his bungalow in Dorset. He has cancer, kidney disease and a broken hip, and he now spends his days in a hospital-style bed in one room of a hostel. His daughter, who used to be his carer, is also housed in the hostel with her family, and the council have said that it could take it up to 8 months to rehouse them when he'll be 99 years of age. Alfred's told his family that he used to be proud of his war medals, but now that he feels like they're worthless. Local Tory MP Christopher Chope the MP for Christchurch, was asked to comment, but he decided to make it an opportunity to gaslight about immigration and Dorset Council spending money on barges for asylum seekers instead of making any sort of reasonable comment about Mr Gwenago's predicament. Presumably he'd rather that we just threw the asylum seekers back in the sea, but we'll have a talk about him another time. What is pertinent though is that this 98-year-old veteran was able to be uprooted from his home as a result of a no-fault eviction. Johnny Mercer, who pledged to end veterans' homelessness, voted against laws to prevent people like Mr Gwenago being evicted as a result of a no-fault eviction 5 times. 5 times. And so we're on to the merciless Mr Mercer's latest arrogant brain fart, in which he's managed to seal his reputation as even more of a bellend than we already thought he was, via a Twitter spat with veteran Number Smith and all-round splendid national treasure Carol Vorderman. Now there's a bit of history here. Johnny's wife has been known to attack Carol Vorderman before for expressing views on Twitter. Yeah, you pay Johnny Mercer's wife £45,000 a year to spend the time arguing with people who criticise the Tories on Twitter. Johnny Mercer is being challenged in his seat at the local election by Fred Thomas, formerly a captain in the Royal Marines. Johnny is obviously worried to see someone who has an arguably more illustrious military career than he has, and certainly has more empathy and competence than he has stepping up. He was outraged when Fred Thomas reminded Mr Mercer of his pledge to end veteran homelessness by the end of the year, by pointing out that it is the end of the year, or it was, and it had risen by 14%. Carol Vorderman reposted this and congratulated Fred Thomas on his approach to bringing Mr Mercer to account, only to be responded to with a bizarre, childish and frankly spiteful response. Mercer accused her and Fred Thomas of deliberately misleading people for clicks and said that they were only doing so in order to make their shit lonely lives better. This was in response to him being given irrefutable, documented, researched evidence that he'd failed to fulfil his promise. A better man would have said, "I can only apologise, I failed to realise the extent of the problem and I will continue working hard to fulfil my pledge." Not the Right Honourable Johnny Mercer though, no. No, instead Johnny's decided that there's now 2 different types of homelessness, and not having a home doesn't necessarily qualify you for being homeless anymore. No, if you've got a room in a hostel, apparently you're not homeless. Yeah. I'd guess this is how he assuages his conscience at knowing that he's voted for policies that have made a 98-year-old veteran like Alfred Gwenago homeless. Though he doesn't see it like that, obviously. Well, the point of this one's quite obvious, isn't it? I thought it should be pointed out that the Right Honourable Johnny Mercer, who has portrayed himself as the moderate Tory friend of veterans, is another right-wing hypocrite like all of the Tories. As we often find when we have a little look at these people who've somehow managed to hoodwink the public into believing that they're fine, upstanding citizens, we've again discovered that he's taken no stand against the absolute worst of the policies his government's enacted, even when they personally affect the people that he claims to be standing up for. I'm tempted to think he's having a bit of a meltdown too, though. He probably expected Labour to put him up against a middle-aged woman from the local area, who he could call woke, wet and wobbly, while thrusting out his chest and playing the part of the modern military conservative man. Well, that's going to be a bit difficult for him now, isn't it? As he's facing a man who can personally relay his own tale of how he left the armed forces because of the mismanagement, funding cuts and failure of the government that Johnny Mercer is part of. Johnny's seat was a Labour seat before he took it in 2015, and he's got a reasonable majority of 13,000, but Labour have overturned majorities like that before, recently, and Fred Thomas is an excellent candidate. I wouldn't put money on it, I haven't fucking got any, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see the Right Honourable Johnny Mercer having to step back and accept defeat in a church hall at 4 AM come the general election. I expect he'll take it a bit better than some, but his Twitter feed will probably be interesting in a few days afterwards. Wonder if Carol Vorderman will have anything to say about it. Anyway, if you've got this far, thank you very much indeed for watching. If you look in the descriptions box below, you'll find links to Johnny Mercer's voting record and my Patreon and buy me a coffee and the Twitter things and all that. And you can get in touch with me if you want down there. Johnny has been quite a prominent MP. especially because he's another one of these ones that seems to want to be a celebrity as well, and he's thrust himself at us on reality TV programmes a couple of times. But he's not actually very important or influential in the Conservative Party. Whether he keeps his seat or not, and regardless of his military history, he's not likely to put up much of a battle in our countdown to power. That's not a very nice view, is it? Do you mind? Good Lord.